Boop boop doo. It's serious horror time. Oh man, here we go. Whoop doo. This is COFOH Live Undead. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by Claire Voyant. Wow!
You write something on my face?
I feel like I need to come on here with like a pow, and I was like, oh, I wasn't prepared. I'm like, someone throw paint on me, quick.
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment.
I'm a glutton for punishing.
For punishing? Okay. Hey, that is a good mix.
It'll be a great 45 minutes, everyone. Here we go.
Here we go. Ah! Splash. Yeah. It's hard to do that online, I guess.
Hold the orange, crush the orange. That's what I got. I got
that. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, how are you?
that is a loaded question, Daniel.
What's that?
Start with something easier.
Oh, something easier. Okay. Yeah. So something easier. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from? How did you get into magic?
Trauma? No, just kidding. A little
As bit. Everybody, goes through that period.
Yeah. So, little Chelsea was just as weird and was the sole goth metal kid in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Falcon, Colorado. You've probably not heard of it because
I have.
Okay, so I called it Falcatraz, and it was like conservative country,
right?
Like when you rebel against it, you rebel hard. Like, so yeah. I was the only goth kid, the only it was weird. Anyway, so super interested in horror and special effects. So I get into the costume industry. I managed a costume store in Colorado Springs called Zizo's for a long time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so like I was like, I'm your like Kryolon Ben Nye Maron dealer. I'm dealing with like I do magic tricks behind their magic counter is like how that kind of starts. So like someone needs to work it. I'm the store manager. Like, so I'm like, all right, I'll learn some card tricks. Sure. Like magic is cool. You can trick people. That's awesome. Sick. Nice. And then I learned that most magic's really dumb and really boring. And like it's the same old people doing the same 5 tricks and they're all creepy. And I was like, I hate doing this. So I didn't think I'd actually like magic until I figured out how to make my own flavor of it. But it actually started because I was slinging Kryolon blood to the haunted houses and helping like I would help drag queens put on makeup and then I would help people put makeup on corpses, and like those are all very scientifically different things. And I got super into the like effects makeup world, which kind of led me into the horror world. And I sort of was like, oh, I can do goth performance somehow, but I'm not hot enough to do burlesque. How do I do this? And honestly, that was real. That was like a thought. I was like, oh, burlesque is sick. Those people like cool and they're like covered in rhinestones, but I was not blessed with a body. I like got stupid snarky brains and I know what I got. It's good. And so I started working the magic counter, learning like magic stuff, and it was rad because I was broke as shit. And making my $8.50 an hour managing my costume store, but I could read as many books as I wanted and I could check them out from the store. And that's where all the good shit is. So if you are watching this because you like magic, don't buy magic tricks, buy books. Because nobody looks there. Everyone goes to YouTube. So if people want to look up what you're doing, they'll go to YouTube and be like, razor blade trick and they'll figure it
Right.
out. But it's like I learned to adapt these weird tricks from the early 20s that magicians were doing, because if it fooled people in the 20s and it's still fooling people outside of like newspaper tricks and phone book tricks, which, you know, like people are like, what is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, that's kind of where I was like, oh, I can take this, adapt it, make it spooky,
Right.
uh, and turn it into kind of like my black sheep magic niche that I have now for some reason. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of the roots of it was
Right.
my costume shop horror makeup job.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've accumulated quite the education. Working at it's Zizos, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it because my girlfriend Lise, she grew up in Colorado Springs and was a big fan of that shop.
I love that. I was like, no
Yeah.
one knows who that is in Denver. People are like, do you mean the Wizard's Chest? No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. For me here in Denver, yeah, Wizard's Chest, disguises over on Colfax.
They all carry foot clothes. Go there. All of them.
Yes, yes, clothes. And of course, being a magician, you naturally start designing footwear, right?
You know, it's the natural progression.
Yeah,
I guess I could get into that a little bit.
yeah, it's an interesting segue, but let's just crash right through that.
It was the segue that nobody expected, not even
Nope.
me.
No, not at
No.
all.
So I'm trucking my way through life, running my costume store. I went to school, like college, like real people college, for a
Yeah.
degree I do nothing with. And
What did you study?
psychology and business. So
Oh,
psychology leaned very heavily into
nice.
mentalism.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fascinating, especially like the more abnormal and the weirder it was. I loved it. And I loved, for that reason, psychological horror, and like Silence of the Lambs was like the cool, like One
Mm,
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I got that's maybe not horror, but like the psychological kind of like, where do people go weird and where do they go wrong? And like that was super interesting to me. And so I studied that. I studied abnormal psychology. I took like homicide classes. It was weird. I had a weird
mm,
education. It was awesome, actually. And then actually, I'll just tell you the real story. This is
yeah.
interesting enough.
Yeah.
The real story is I get to a point in my psychology life of learning where they're like, you need to take a developmental psychology class. And I was like, great, cool, whatever, that's fine. I'll learn about
Yes.
kids and then I'll forget about it because gross. Anyway, and I just
Little bipedal, creatures. Yeah.
but this is so bad. So part of getting that credit was I had to do studies on rats.
Oh.
And I had a pet rat and he was the cutest thing and I couldn't do it. I was a
Mm,
giant pussy about it. And I was like, I cannot do this class. And I was like, can I take like an online version? Can I
yes.
can I do the virtual version? Like, I'm all about learning. I understand why this is important. I know where insulin comes from. I
Mhm.
can't do this. Like,
Yes.
I am a weenie. And they said, no, you have to do it. And so I said,
Yes.
no, I'm going to learn business and just take advantage of humans instead of animals.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, nice.
much easier. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. Like, so I went to the dark side. I call it the dark side because business school.
Yep.
Okay. While this is happening, so I am a workaholic at this point. I have a black metal band. I'm going to school. I worked at a costume store. I had like another real job to like help me pay for my dumb apartment. And I moved to Denver. And the reason I moved to Denver is because I was also in a hearse club at the time,
Ah, right.
the Denver Hearse
Yes.
Association,
Yep.
who I have seen outside of COFOH.
Yep.
Is that an acceptable abbreviation? COFOH? That's like how I've always
Yes.
said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cofo's, you find. Yeah. The long version is just so winding,
It
right?
I don't have time, Daniel. I
Yeah.
don't have
Exactly.
time.
Nobody's got the time. Just Cofo it.
I'm like, "All right, so we're going through, like, my trauma at the costume store.
Yep.
rats. Where we at? Hearse Club, right?
First club.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a hearse because I was in a band called Alabaster Morgue playing keyboard as a spooky keyboardist. We played black metal. It was rad. And our method of transportation was hearse because it fits all of the instruments. It's really practical
Cool.
in that lone situation. It is the least practical car you can have in any other situation. So I'm in this hearse club, and while I'm at this hearse club, my friend who ran it
Mhm.
hired who you probably know.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, um, hired a magician, and his name was Felix, who I just had coffee with last week.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, so he works here in Denver as a mentalist, and I didn't know what the hell mentalism was. I was like,
Mhm.
"What is that?"
Yeah.
And I see him at the Hearst convention, and he calls me up on stage because I was like on stilts or something circusy and dumb because I was a circus nerd. I don't know. I don't know. I've had stilts at a Hearst convention, guys. Like, if
I
you
know a
haven't
lot
tuned
of
out by
circus.
now, just save
Yeah.
yourself. Save
Yeah.
yourself the trouble because I don't know why you're here. And so I'm really good at marketing. And
Excellent.
so he calls me up on stage to like help him with like a fork bending trick.
Okay.
And I'm like, "All right, yeah, fuck that fork. Bend it," like, cool. Silverware sucks, right? And, I don't know.
I love
You
this. I was like, fuck you, silverware. I'm going
I
sport.
don't even like you. Which I have a side story to this. I told you guys, I was like, "Daniel, you're gonna have to reel me in, man. Like, this is how
I
you
love
invited
this.
me on, and this is how this is going."
I love conversations that go off the rails because where you end up is not nowhere. It's a character arc. You
Okay,
know.
there's no rails. There's no rails. They
Ooh,
don't even
even better.
exist. They're
Even
in
better.
another dimension. So I'm at the Hearst convention,
As one
and
should be.
yeah, I'm like 18 and still like really hot at this point, so I'm dressed like a whore. It's awesome. I have like a corset and stilts, and I am like super spooky. I love it. I'm like,
Ah,
I was hot. I'm not gonna lie. On vinyl, it was awesome. Anyway, that's why I got called up because
nice. Yeah.
Target, and I'm like the most extroverted person there.
Mm.
Like, I know this is shocking to you, but the Hearst Club is full of introverts. And
What? Goth people, introverts.
right. And I'm like the weird social butterfly, like the bat. I'm like
Yeah.
the social bat.
Yeah.
And so I get called on stage and I am nerding out on this shit. I'm like, you distracted me and you bent the fork, and that's awesome. Like, uh, so I'm planning on moving to Denver anyway because get the fuck out of Colorado Springs and New Life Church and
Yep.
literally fuck all of that because I hate it
Right.
so much. Like the air there is like
Gross.
different. It's different.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I worked at Zizos, I was like I was the gay employer. Like I hired all the gay drag queens that
Oh,
nobody else wanted because they're stupid and they were amazing. And
yes.
so we were like the safe place in Colorado Springs
Good.
for the gay and trans community. And like drag queens would come get their makeup and men would come get their tights and I would help them and it would be awesome. And I loved
Yeah.
every minute of it. So I'm like, let me backtrack a little bit here. So anyway, that's kind of where I came from was this entire environment,
Yes.
but Colorado Springs is not like that. And your girlfriend will probably attest to that
Yep.
because she also probably does not live there anymore.
No,
And
she lives up here in Aurora with me. I don't know
perfect.
how I got so lucky, but
I don't know either. You're kind of
yeah,
weird.
I am. I mean, look at the background, right?
Which we learned earlier when I was setting up. That's not even real skin, guys. That is
No,
latex.
it's fake chicken skin.
I know. I'm like, Daniel, what are you doing? You run a horror podcast. You
Yeah,
poser.
well, clearly, it's all about the faux finishing, kids.
No, I love it. So, like, I actually really love it. And this is why
Yes.
horror movies are hard for me. Like, and I always trended more towards psychological horror and like the
Right.
things you couldn't see because that's scarier to me. Like, and
Yeah.
I feel like to the human psyche, that's scarier. Like,
The unknown.
scarier, not necessarily more interesting, but definitely more unsettling is like the room that you don't know what's going on in or the
Yeah.
door you don't know what's behind. Whereas, like, I'm so terrible at like gore scenes, and it would be horrible to watch a horror movie with me because I was like, oh, they definitely used mass casualty blood powder in
Oh,
that
there you
scene.
go.
Like,
I,
I'm like, I recognize how viscous that
yeah,
is. It's definitely glycerin based. Like, I'm horrible. Don't watch a movie with me. I do not recommend it. And
I'm that way with going to haunted houses. I'll be sitting there. Oh wow, how did you do that? And I'll be talking to the actors, and they're trying to perform, and they're just like, "What the fuck, dude?"
so
And
what's awesome, I'm like, we're just gonna go everywhere. We're just gonna see where this takes us. And then I'll come
yeah,
back and I'll try to
exactly.
do
I
my
was
best to make this some sort of linear fashion. But when
linear.
I was at the costume store, we sold a whole bunch of stuff to haunted houses.
Yeah,
A few that don't exist anymore because the people who ran them were terrible, but a lot of them that were great.
yeah.
And at the time, a nameless haunted house had talked to me and came in and like bought. I mean, I was running orders for, hello, we need 100 gallons of blood. And I'm like, I got you.
Mm,
And then I was like, well, actually, let me talk to you about blood powder and glycerin and the magic of that. And
yeah,
so I became like the haunted house behind the scenes, like consultant. Like, I
cool.
didn't have any technical skills, but I knew the product up and down.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
haunted house makeup artists would come to me. I would tell them which blood to buy and why it would stain if you used things underneath it, and, like, I learned
Mm,
all of the science behind the blood, essentially.
excellent.
Um, like, I was the guy that ordered the latex foam. Like, that
Yeah,
was, and I talked them into that because this is why it's rad, and, whatever. I'm sure you, like, know a good amount about horror SFX, and, I've talked to
that's
people who know much more than I do, but I was kinda nerdy about it, and
definitely
I was super
cool.
into, like, the Krylon science side of things specifically, and
Yeah.
that, like, I'm like, "There is an underground German horror makeup scene, it's really rad, actually."
Mhm.
Yeah. I'll hook you up with some people that are
Excellent.
nerdier than I am, and I'm pretty nerdy about it. I'd be like, "You need castor oil to seal your latex because it'll make the makeup sit on it like skin, and it'll blend beautifully," and
Nice.
people are
Yeah.
like, "Yes, yes." So, I'm doing that. I'm teaching the funeral homes how to do makeup. This is my
Oh,
job.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Working with the mortuary and
and cadavers are interesting because I had to learn about
yes.
sealants and what they use because you can't put standard makeup on the same way because
Right.
skin doesn't act the same way, so you have to seal it. It's like priming a house, but it's
Okay.
a dude, you know? So,
It
I'm
used to
like, "Hold
be
on,
a dude.
you." I mean, it's a body of a dude,
It's a
like,
body of a dude. Yeah.
it's an
He's now
object.
21 grams lighter, I
We
suppose.
probably have a similar viewpoint on that. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"Okay." But, okay, your job as host of this is to drag me back to what I was talking about because
I know.
it is different.
Thanks for directing me. I'm still just letting it's like let's just let this go.
I'm trying to help you help me because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well,
Daniel.
that's okay. So,
Anyway, okay, so
we're
haunted
on
houses,
this
that's where we're at.
journey.
Haunted houses come in and they're like, "Help us with blood, help us with this." And I
Right.
would talk to them and I would advise them on stuff and I'd be like, "This is scary," or like, "You don't need 50 pounds of blood because it's way scarier if your asylum patient in your haunted house is just slightly bleeding from their nose. That's
Mm,
uncomfortable and it
yes.
costs you way less. Do that." Like, because why would they be covered in gashes? There's no reason, unless they did it to themselves, and I always got super nerdy about the story behind haunted houses, because too
The
many haunted
narration
house
is
makeup
important.
artists.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, yeah?
I said the narration is really important.
I think it
Uh,
is, and I think people overlook it because I would be like, "Why is there a gash on their forehead and their cheek?" Beside the fact that that's the flattest and safest option for you to put makeup on. There's no
right.
reason. So I
Right.
would be like, "Tell me the story behind this patient."
Right.
And I would be like, "There's no reason for her to have a gash across her forehead. There's none. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do that?" But her nose is bleeding because her brain is screwed up. That's terrifying.
Right.
So, do that, and they eventually realized that, like, I knew stuff about fear, and honestly, when you do mentalism, you get really into psychology and people
Yeah.
and reading them and facial expressions, and all of that has a actual science behind it. Like, most of what I do is more science than magic tricks, really.
Right. Well,
And I'll tell people that up
it,
front.
and that plays into a little bit of your education too, because you took your psychology background and education. I could see how that would play into
And
the
that's why
fact.
I was like, I have to start with this weird fact that I grew up in a costume store and got a psychology degree because that is like the foundation of everything
Yeah,
fucking bizarre that happened after
yeah.
that. And I grew
Well,
up in like a weird Christian rural town that made me
I can totally relate. I grew up in Kersey, Colorado. That was basically the same way. Less than 1,000 people, I think, when I was living there, and I was the weird art kid.
right. And you're the weird art kid and the theater kid and the goth kid.
Yep.
And I was friends with all of it. I was weirdly friends with the jocks too. Cause they were like, she's weird, but she's funny. And I finally owned it. I was like, my jokes are bad, but they're good because they're bad. And I got it now. And so I'm working with haunted houses. And
Yeah.
finally, some of the organizers of the haunted houses come in and said, will you walk our haunted house before it opens and just
Ooh,
tell us what would make it scarier? There's not going to be
nice little
like
critique section.
the lights are going to be on. There's not going to be any actors. Like I walked through a ton of haunted houses before they were open.
Yeah.
And my job at that point, which I was young and dumb and didn't charge them because I thought it was fun. And I was like, this is worth money. What am I talking about? Anyway,
Mhm.
uh, arts,
Art.
everyone,
Yeah.
charge for your shit. And so I'm walking through this haunted house and like they would be like, well, we have this sick room and it's an asylum and there's clowns and there's also vines. And if you reach through the vine, there's a clown. And I was like, why? Why do you have all of that? Like, you can
It-
cut every actor from this room, fill this room with fog, and it's terrifying. Like, you don't know where the walls are, and maybe the walls are people. You don't know. You have to reach. So there was a haunted house that had trees, and I was
mm,
like, I was a nerd kid that watched Legends of the Hidden Temple, and all I remember was the
mm,
terrifying game where they had to reach into like a tree
yep.
and grab a key, and that tree may or may not have a person in it. And
Ooh.
me as a 12-year-old, I was like, that's scary. Does it have a
Yeah.
person in it? I don't know. Nobody knows. And
Right.
so if you fill a room with fog and people don't know what's in it, that's scarier to them than
Yeah.
random
And the
like
thing is,
sound.
yeah, once you just define something, and it's on display there, then you become accustomed to it. You become familiarized with it, and and the fear factor is no longer gone or no longer there. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so something coming out at you from the darkness, that you can't see, that you can't visualize, that's yeah. Then your imagination is allowed to be really creative.
And
I
your
think.
imagination is much, much scarier
Yeah.
than screaming person jumping out behind the door. That's a jump scare, and then you laugh, like because it's fun and haunted houses are
Yeah.
fun. And I try to put myself in that mindset. It depends on who I go with. I love going with people who are terrified. Like that's my favorite. It's like the
Right.
most fun way to experience a haunted house because I am too like I know too much about the behind
Yeah.
the scenes that it's not real to me anymore. So I need someone who puts me in that mindset. So I'm talking to them about like this would make it scarier. And I was the first person in like I think the haunted house community, at least in Colorado, to be like, why, if this is a butcher shop, why doesn't it smell like a butcher shop? And
Ooh.
they were like,
The aura factor.
what do
Yeah.
you mean? And I was like, here's the thing. And I nerded and I was like, your sense of smell goes directly to your hippocampus. Guess what else is directly in your hippocampus? Your sense of fear, dude. Like your fight or flight comes from your
Nice.
hippocampus, which is directly connected to your sense of smell.
Nice.
It's the only sense that
Yeah.
is. So it's the same reason smell brings back memories in a way that other
Yes.
senses can't.
Yeah.
And so I was like, can you get rotting meat and put it
Mhm.
in the corner? I promise you don't need very much. I've had a
Right.
fridge where it goes bad. It's disgusting. And if you don't put it in a fridge, it'll be horrible. And I feel really
Right.
bad for whoever has to volunteer to work in here because you're not going to pay him anything. But anyway, that's another problem. I'm just going to sidestep that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just put that, shelve that.
she'll, haunted house people, pay your people.
Yeah.
And,
That's so
the thing
cool.
is I was like, it is gonna be way scarier to people if they smell rotting meat
Yep.
in the locker with rotting flesh. Because if there's rotting flesh and it doesn't smell like it, no one's going to believe you. And I know everyone knows they're in something that's fake, but the moment you trick them enough that they kind of forget it's fake, you win. And the first haunted house guy that I talked to at Zizo's came back to me and was like, that was brilliant. We do that
Yeah.
every night now. Like, we go to the
Cool.
grocery store and we get
Cool.
all of their clearance crap and we leave it out. And I was
Yeah.
like, perfect. Make sure nobody gets a disease because I am not a doctor. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
But
every now and then, like with special effects artists, you'll see them. Yeah, for me, they cut corners, and yeah, and that's how I term it. And they put it like a bag of actual animal offal on you. I had that happen once. I'm like, this is not going to happen again because I could get an infection, I could get sick from
yeah,
this shit, and I could get other people sick because I'm wearing it.
you know, and I do what every goth girl does when they turn 18 and you're like, I'm gonna get into taxidermy and sell skulls and shit. Like, you know, because everyone does it. And we all learn about it. And we're like, we're gonna put it in a water bath and we're gonna let it sit, you know, and it smells
Ooh,
disgusting. And that
right,
smell is ingrained into my brain to the point where like I'm talking to you about it
right.
right now, and you know what that smell is because you've been
Mhm.
to the oddities show, like you know.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, you know what's more uncomfortable than hiring 4 actors to sit in a room is a room that smells like that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know what the legality of that is. You have a lawyer for that reason,
Right.
you know? But so I kind of became this weird psychology consultant for fear and
Yes.
fear-based responses because I studied abnormal psych and I studied
Yeah.
like the fear response. I said brain science. And, you know, I used that brain science to do magic instead of a real career.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it
I
makes sense
literally,
playing into the mentalist aspect, It's
yes.
like
And
because of
that's
that,
where,
you know
yeah.
how to fool the mind or the person in front of you
Yeah, and I kind of wanted once I learned more about the magic industry, I wanted to change it.
anyway.
So, I came from this weird world where I was in a hearse club and I loved
Yeah.
horror cult films and black metal, and I was like, "You know what? I'm not." So, America's Got Talent calls me, and I'm like, who the fuck are you?" And
Yeah. Right.
so I, like, was at first a little starstruck and like, "Wow, cool." And, I had, like, a Russian roulette routine that I submitted to them. It was super cool.
Ooh, wow.
And then I got the legal part of it, and
Ooh.
it's bullshit. It is, we can take this routine, we can give it to anyone we want, we can steal it, we own it, you get no money. Really, the
Ooh.
entire show is a setup. The entire line of people who are auditioning is fake. Like, that's all true. And I
Yeah.
know people have been on the show. It's all invite only, really. Like, I got an email. There's no line. You don't wait in the line. You don't, have your chance as the little guy. Someone
Right.
gives you a name. And somebody I know was on that show who referred me. And that's how they got me. And I submitted this act that was done by somebody else. And I saw it because I got phone calls that are like, "Hey, uh, I think a guy just did your thing." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And so I basically phone up Megan, my person at America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I didn't phone her. I emailed her a very sternly worded,
Right.
very bridgy, Bernie email. And that was the point where I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not doing this way because it's not me. And like, I shouldn't have applied to a fucking TV show that should be have instead of got. I don't know why I did that. America has talent, you guys, not got.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
should have been smarter than that. I wasn't. And
Oh,
because that's
God.
how I thought you made it. And at this point, like, I'm still questioning whether women can do magic. It's not a thing. You don't see it. There's like 6 of us. And out of the 6 of us, I am like the black sheep. I am the cult horror of video and the black metal of music. I am that to magic. Like, magicians do not
Yeah.
like me. That's not they don't get it. They don't get why I don't do the same 20 tricks that everyone does and why I dress as a satanic televangelist and a fox and all this weird, like, I create weird characters and I have fun and I make a point and it's very like
Mm.
I always talk about dumb like I'm talking to you. Like I'm like,
I
"Oh,
know. Why are you wasting your time with me?
'cause this is fun." I
Because this
love
is fun. Yeah, I'm having a good
it.
time.
Okay, good, good. I'm gonna go with it. And so, like, I end up this black sheep of the magic world. There's no females. There's much less like goth females. I meet one other magician in the entire world that I'm like, oh wow, you're really cool. Or two. I have two. Okay.
Well,
So like, and I love, and they're both female and they're great. And
yes. I would think that something like in magic, that goth horror loving black metal loving people like yourself would be more abundant.
so it's really hard. It's a super hard industry to make it unless you're stubborn as fuck.
Yeah. Okay.
So because there's so many barriers to
Yeah.
entry. One of them is like learning specifically because everything is secret and everything is guarded and you have to find your way in. But the other thing is it's so for lack of this sounding very like tropey, is it's old white man, old boys
Right.
club. The
Right.
Magic Castle has its own problems. Like I've been there twice and there are people I love there and it is hugely problematic. And I thought it was like, the I was like, this is the epitome of magic and I'm here and it's amazing. And like
Yeah.
all I saw was like, oh, this is an old man magician like berating a woman on stage, making her cry.
Mm.
Like, and I was like, this is not about tricking people. This is about entertaining people. They are paying you. Like, your job is to entertain them, not to make them feel stupid.
Right.
Unless they are drunk on stage and it's hilarious to make them feel stupid. That is my caveat because that has
Yeah.
happened. It's funny, it's brilliant. Sometimes things present themselves and you
Yeah.
just have
You gotta jump on them.
so I started breaking the rules of magic and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make tricks that reveal the trick behind it because it teaches a lesson to the people
Mhm.
about it. And like, so I started doing tricks that revealed how psychics work and how faith healers like
Oh,
lie to people. And
great.
I'm like, this is exactly how people tricked people into thinking they could cure cancer. This
Mm.
right here. And
Yeah.
it's
The
bullshit.
snake
It's
oil tells
horrible.
me.
And that's a horrible thing for people to do. So I'm just gonna expose that and then I'm gonna do something cooler. And that was my shtick
Yeah.
as as a magician and why I got into like the darker side. I found a producer who loves me and cares about me, even though he'll never admit it because he's such a dick. I love him. And you probably, I think you've talked to him. You know Scott.
Scott.
Mr. Scott
Yeah. Yeah.
Crosier.
I know Scott.
So
Yeah.
Scott's my best friend and also my worst enemy
Yes.
at the same time. And
It's a good combo to have.
I it's
Balances
perfect.
the
That's
scales.
amazing. And, so he has a show called Carnival de Sensual, and I've been
Right.
in every
Right.
single one, and I kinda helped him shape some of the feel and, like, the vibe of
Okay.
it, which is where, the last few performances of, like he lets me do whatever I want, which is awesome, but that's what I needed. I was like, "I get a
Yeah.
big stage, I can do whatever I want, like, with someone who supports me, and as long as people keep coming back and paying money, I can keep doing it. So as long as I'm
Yes.
good, we're golden." And so I'm like, "I can do this. I got this." Like,
Nice.
and so I made a bunch of people mad and started doing evil demon Satan magic, but making it hilarious and funny and accessible. And the world doesn't like that. And my favorite thing is our collection of like hate comments from the shows that we've done.
Oh, like
And
online, or just like in.
mainly online. It's reviews and it's feedback. And on the worst reviews are my best feedback. And I'm all about it. I'm like, what like, Scott was
Those
like, "Do you
are
wanna
good
do a
gauges.
black mass?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "I can do a real ass black mass." And he was like, "What?" And I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, yeah. Like, I can do that." Like, I'm like, "First of all, like, LeVay was a nerdy, like, carnival organist."
Right.
I'm sure this crosses over with horror a little
Yep.
bit, and it was like I'm
Oh,
like, "This
very
man loves
much.
wearing devil costumes and having orgies." That is what
Yeah.
he is a joke. Like, if you go to the Church of Satan website, it's in, like, circus font. I'm like, "This is nothing
Yeah.
but, like this is supposed to be a joke, guys." Like,
Yeah.
it's poking fun at you. There is nothing serious about this at all. Like, um
And that's the thing with a lot of contemporary Satanism is because it's a great there's a sarcasm to it, but there's also, kind of the turning the mirror and reflecting back at society. It's like, hey, come on, guys.
Right. And some of my favorite gigs, so I don't have to do them anymore.
Yeah.
Because of my booming sock business. Hold on, I'll get to that.
Yes.
But so when I was working full time as a magician for a while. So I left the costume store. I got a real job in like corporate project management where I made some money, but hated my life and it was soul sucking. But I learned apparel production, and that's important for later. I did merch and like I learned how to I learned printing and I learned like production and I learned all of the things behind it, but I hated my life. And it's when they started wanting me to work with like mega churches and like do their merchandise. And I was like,
Nope.
I cannot. And while that's happening, they're trying to get me to do this. I get a call from Stanley and they need a seance magician.
Nice.
And this call came from somebody who I was like I had studied under at one point. He's now a horrible person, and I can totally say that out loud. But so I get this call, and it's like, "Hey, we're looking for a seance magician for the Stanley. It's full time. You work every weekend. You don't have any weekends off." And I'm like, "Down. I'm in. I want to leave this place. Like, I'm done."
Cool.
And so I take it, and the job itself is fucking awesome. Like,
cool.
I'm one of, I think it's like 10 people maybe in the history of the last 100 years who have been allowed to play Flora Stanley's piano, which is a 1906 Steinway. And I had to be like, look, I'm not classically trained. I didn't have any money. I don't know anything, but I learned to play keyboard in a black metal band and I got really bizarrely good at it. Like,
Nice.
And I can play. And so they were like, okay, well, you can use Flora Stanley's music room. You can do seance magic in there and you can play the piano in the open of your show. So I would start the show veiled, like masked, playing the piano as people came in. And I played piano for 30 minutes, like 20 to 30 minutes every night, just improv. Like I could play whatever I wanted. And it was all spooky sounding because that's all I knew how to play. If someone was like, play something happy, I'd be like, C major? I don't know. Like, what do you want me to do? And so I got to play piano and I incorporated that into the show. So I would have people think of a song from the 1920s and be blindfolded, and I'd have someone think of that and then I would play it. And I learned basically every song from the 1920s or 30s like era on piano so I could just play it, and magicians didn't do that kind of thing. So magicians came to my show and liked it and enjoyed it. And they were like, how do you do that? And so like we have some other friends in Denver who are spooky ghost hunters who have their own history with the Stanley, and they came to my show and it was super fun. And I became super good friends with them and all of that. And, we both have a similar relationship with the Stanley now where we were like, oh, the building is beautiful and the history is awesome and the story is there and it's cool and it's ran by a bunch of really creepy men. And that's true. And I'll say that and you can fight me. Anyone. I'm like, anyone in the comments. And I'm like, let's bring controversy to the podcast, everyone. It'll be great.
Well, yeah, guys are fucking creepy.
It sucks so bad. I didn't want that. So anyway, while that's unfolding, the person I'm working for decides to be creepy at my assistant, and it's like all really crappy. No. And so I'm working that out because at the time I'm working 2 days a week, making like killer money to do what I love. And it is every night I have people who are just like, that was crazy. And it's theatrical seance. And I can come out at the beginning and be like, I'm going to lie to you. This entire thing is fake. And then I do all of the shit. And then at the end, everyone is like, I don't know how that was fake. You're lying to me. That's real. That's gotta be real.
Right.
And that was the reaction I wanted. It was awesome. Sometimes people would be like, can you talk to my dead grandma? And I'm like, no, no, I cannot. Like I have a psych degree and a penchant for weird. And I also made magicians mad who do this kind of thing because they present it as real. And I didn't. And I never really, like you can kind of play that line of like, is it real? We don't know.
You're not. Yeah, I'm just asking a question. Then you turn
Right.
into Fox News at that point.
Kind of, but at the same time, I had to be like, there's a point in my show where I would be like, you guys, do you think I get a ghost to come every day at 7:45 and do the thing?
Right.
Like, no, you're not
Yeah.
stupid. You're not a stupid audience, and I'm not going to treat you that way. Like, I
Nice.
want you to leave here questioning how that was possible. And if you leave here doing that, then I have done my job. And that is some
Yeah.
advice that I got from Teller of like Penn and Teller.
Cool.
And he was
Cool.
like, you can't, mentalism is a bad word if you fake it and you use this like faith healer, I can do
Right.
anything, I can blah blah blah. And leaving people questioning, but telling them that you're gonna leave them questioning because you're just a normal ass human with normal ass like, you know,
Yes.
and I'm not gonna lie, that weird stuff didn't happen to me while I was doing that show that I can't explain because it did. And to this day, I think it's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
like, there are things that I'm like, I don't science doesn't know how to explain that yet. There's some energy shit going on here. And there's some stuff that me as a skeptic going in, the biggest, like, I'm like, I'm a skeptic. I know how psychics work. I know how everyone
Mhm.
fools everyone.
Yeah.
And that place is super special and will always be super special and cool to me because there is something weird. Like, as the biggest skeptic, scientific, I will tell you you're fakeifying everything. There is stuff that happened to me there that is bizarre. Most of it is electricity related,
Mhm. Okay.
or sound related or lights related, and I
Yeah.
feel like that has something to do with energy.
Sure.
And you
That
know, who knows?
transference.
Is this random? Is this energy
Yes.
of people? Is this confirmation bias? I don't really know.
Mm.
But there were times where, you know, I'm there, I'm drinking wine, I'm doing my show, I'm playing the piano, and people after the show would sometimes come to me and be like, "You were blindfolded. You
Right.
were blindfolded." But every time you said Flora, the lights shut off. And I was like, "What?" Like,
Mm.
that's bizarre. And so I learned later that all of the lights in that room are on this same circuit, but
Mm.
and wired in parallel. So I like nerded out and was like, how are these wired? This is an old building. It's not wired
Yes.
well. And
Yeah.
so if one goes out, they should all go out.
Right.
Right. Like in theory, I'm like, I know how this works. I've put up Christmas lights in my life. Like so I know how this works. And there's video of like the lights above the piano flickering. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's weird, like, how does that happen? I don't understand." So I have, like, things and I'm like, did they put in LED light bulbs? Are they all going out at the same time? I don't know.
Mhm.
And I think that's so cool, and I'm like, "Come on, there's gotta be something," like, I'm in the Brian Bonner camp of, like, "Let's investigate this, there's gotta be something sick going on because we don't
Right.
understand everything because we're stupid humans," right?
Right. Well, yeah, even like stuff that you can't explain. There's always like somebody else that might have a little bit more insights. Like maybe it's how it's built, maybe it's the slope, maybe it's the foundation has slipped a little bit, and I mean one thing affects another, and it's a whole chain of stuff.
Right, and maybe it's the fact that there's no quartz underneath the Stanley at all, and they've been using that as a life forever to say that that's why there's paranormal activity there, and maybe you're the person who discovered that,
Right.
and I love you, the person who discovered that. And, so I'm there. Anyway, regardless of all of this, like,
Yeah.
I love the architecture, I love the history. Flora
Mhm.
Stanley's, like, one of my personal heroes because I did the show about her, and I loved her because she was, like, the actual owner boss of the entire thing and gets no credit because she
Mhm.
was female in the 1800s, like, and early
Gotcha.
1900s, of course she did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have her picture on my wall in the foot clothes office, like,
Oh,
huge,
cool.
and she's super important to me. Like, I was like, "You queen." And also, like, she had a 1906 Steinway that somebody allowed me to play. Like, why did you do that? I'm not, like, that good. I'm not like Rachmaninoff over here, but, it wasn't terrible either, and it added a lot to the show. It was super cool. So I'm
Nice.
doing this, it's great, and then, that big old thing, that big old COVID happens,
Right.
and if you're a performer, uh, you're
So
fucked,
yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and if you tried to get through the unemployment system in Colorado, it didn't work
That's
very well,
nope.
and I got stuck in a technicality because I quit my W-2 job to do magic that they were like, oh, you had a W-2 in the last 18 months. Sorry. Like, and I was like, I literally lost my job as a result of this. Like, they were like, 1 week, they were like, you can't perform because there's some like stuff going on. Right. And during this week, I was like, I look back at it and I was like, I was so dumb. I was like, this will be a week. It's fine. We'll just wear gloves. We'll get through it, you know, like
3
everyone.
years later.
And during this time, so
Ooh.
Dave is a
Yeah.
death metal, black metal producer. I'm sitting in his studio right now. And that's why I have like all this extra bullshit. I'm like, And
Yeah.
so he is recording bands. He records a band called Nuclear Power Trio. And this is important because they are a band who did a YouTube video and they got signed because all of them are actually like crazy good musicians who are also signed. And they have these super realistic masks and they perform as Trump, Putin, and Kim Jong-un as, and they're like super realistic, like $10,000 to $15,000 masks on a deal.
Oh,
like
hyper flesh masks or something.
Yeah, they are. That's exactly what they are. They're hyper.
Yeah, I love Landon. He's amazing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's him. And
Yeah.
he makes the masks for this band that Dave records, and they're all friends of mine. Like, and so they're like, we're gonna have a party bus called Clear and Present Rager, and like we're gonna drink Coronas, and it's hilarious. And I'm like, this is funny. And so like, I'm on a party bus with fucking Nuclear Power Trio, right? Which is all like a joke. It's like a political joke, and I don't realize how real this is about to get. Like, I am just like, whatever, I'm gonna be a magician forever and like, you know, making sick money and doing all of this. And that completely like
that went out the
ended
window.
harsh, smack in the face to me. Like, and I think I was telling you this maybe before we set up, but I'm super extroverted. I'm like, you guys can probably tell.
You also mentioned it during the broadcast.
Okay, good. So
yeah.
I need people around and I need performance and I'm like an attention whore in that way. And then I'm like, yes, I'll be on your podcast, please. Like, and Daniel, thank you, first of all.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah. And I'm just waiting to see where's this nugget going.
I'm working on it. So I'm like, I don't know what time it is, but I'm sure that I've been talking a lot. So I'm getting to socks. We're getting to socks.
We've got 10 minutes.
All right. So I'm getting socks. That's where this is going. So you know, coronavirus happens.
Right.
I'm like, I'm a sad motherfucker. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to do video magic. That's dumb. I'm like, is this your card? But I could like see the card on the screen. Like, I'm like, what are people doing? How are they doing this? You can't, like, I read people and my entire stage presence is involved with like people coming up. And actually, Scott was instrumental in bringing me back to the magic world because he gave me my first show after COVID. And he was like, you can do it at the O. I'm not going to charge you anything. Just bring as many people as law will allow, and we'll, you know, spread them out. You can do as many shows as you want. Like, so I did a show called Dominatrix, like as a pun. Yeah. And, you know, all in vinyl. And it was like such a strong comeback. It was like the best of Claire, Voyant, whatever. And while this is happening, I'm like, okay, it's March. Everyone has a drinking problem. I kind of want to be like them. That seems fun. And but I just like get goofy and silly and I like can't handle it. So Dave, my partner in crime, and I we're like hanging out, and I think it was him actually. I think he forgot what socks were called and he called them foot clothes. And I thought this was amazing. Like,
there you go, Dave.
That's awesome. And so I have this thing where I buy URLs when I'm drunk. Okay. So I own so many URLs that are just stupid. Like when people used to piss me off, I used to go buy their URLs and like reroute their URL to something stupid. Like, there's so many stories of this. And like, I would drink with my friends and I'd be like, what if we owned hotgothbutts.com? I own that. And like, I don't know. This was like a thing. So I bought bookclothes.com. And so it started as a conversation of like, well, what are you going to do now? Like, what can you do remotely? And I was like, okay, well, you work with bands. I can maybe make merchandise. I used to make merchandise. Like, I mean, t-shirt places aren't, you know, printing anything because they can't be in office. And I was like,
Right.
oh, like, and then I was like, I'm gonna complain about socks because these are uncomfortable and shitty and I hate them. And like this all weirdly came to a culmination of joking
Yeah.
about me starting a sock company called Foot Clothes. And I was like, and then I was like, literally, what else am I gonna do? I can't work for people.
Right.
I've worked for myself for too long at this point that like
Yeah.
I love going into work at 11 and doing whatever the hell I want. And like, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And so I set up a Shopify account and I have no idea what I'm doing outside of like I have a little bit of merchandise and sourcing experience. I have a friend who's a designer who was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll help you like at a discounted rate. And like if it does well, take care of me. And it did well, and I take care of him.
Nice.
And so I have an artist friend who's willing to help me because I can't draw. I can't do makeup artistry. I know all of the stuff behind it. I always was like the person who knew the product and the
Right.
page and the science and all of that, but
All the
never quite
practicality.
like
Yeah.
if you ask like the Cerberus socks or the Kraken socks, I like drew an upside down crappy octopus and was like, what if there's like a ship, you know? And I think this might be your cue. I think this might be your
Yeah.
cue.
I'm trying. I'm trying to get this foot up here.
Everyone cheer on Daniel as he does this. He shows off his
Whoa.
clothes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I got some foot clothes on my feet.
I'm like, do I do it? I'm like, so actually this is funny. I'm like, I'm not wearing
Ooh,
shoes, guys.
which ones do you have on?
So I have a fortune tellers, which is the very, 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 very first design I did.
Nice.
This is actually the very, very, very first sample. It's still holding up. I wear it all the time. I'm like,
Wow.
there you go, guys. And this is the sample that came from the factory. And I sampled like 40 factories because
Oh,
I'm
wow.
picky.
Yeah.
And each sample costs $50. So I have spent my entire savings from the Stanley sampling socks
Damn.
at this point. And I'm like, cool. Like, that was a lot of money. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been trying to pay bills with no income. Here we go.
Right.
So I'm like, let's make a Kickstarter and see if see if people even care, like proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
So the first line of socks I did was sideshow themed because a lot of my friends do circus and sideshow and weird go-go dancing goth poi bullshit. And I love them. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this as like an homage to them. And the entire first line I did was sideshow themed.
Cool.
And I was like, that's weird enough that I can like test if this is going to work at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to make a video. And I was like, I don't know, like Dave is like production oriented. He's got like a studio and he's like, I have a fancy camera. And I was like, cool, like, let's try it. And I have a friend who's like, hey, my goat is going to have baby goats. And I was like, can I put your baby goat in my commercial? And they're like, yes. I was like, sick. So I make a commercial with a baby
Right.
goat. This commercial goes viral. It has over 1 million views. I put
Nice.
this on my Kickstarter and I'm like, hey, I get my weird friends to show up. Like my friend Val was the other magician at Zizo's with me. And he's just
Cool.
like a weird dude who's like in the Marines and does all this stuff. But he also does magic and I adore him. And I'm like, hey, can you show up in my office and wear a strongman suit and model these socks? And he's like, sure. So I'm getting through the pandemic with the help of my like 3 close friends. And we all have to like talk about like who we've been around. It's weird. Like no one knows what's going on. And so I make this video and I launch this Kickstarter and suddenly I have $15,000.
Good.
And I'm like, okay. And it's Kickstarter. So it's $15,000 of orders, kind of. It's like pre-orders. And I'm
Right.
like, wow, okay, like maybe I can do this. So I take all the money that I make from the Kickstarter. I put together really cool packs. I make sure like it's good quality. And I was like such a jerk about quality. I was like, it has to be double padded. No, I can feel the seam. I hate this, you know? And I wanted
Yeah.
to work with people I liked who had all the like factory certifications, who treat their workers well. And that's actually really,
Right.
really hard to
Yes.
find. And so I'm struggle bussing and I get through this and I have a little bit of money left over and I go, okay, I'm going to make a second line. I'm going to make a website and I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'm going to cater to like goth weirdos and performers and horror and 80s retro. So it's become like goth retro weird.
Yeah.
And my people like kind of just found me because they've always been around. So like I kind of had this weird following from Magic, and I had this weird following from when I worked at the costume store. And bizarrely, these are all the target market for socks. And I was like, okay. So I have a sock company, footclothes.com. And I'm like, oh, I could just create a cool company and like
Yeah.
hire awesome people and pay them well. And like, this is rad. So, it's hard. Like, I went and looked at warehouses this week that I don't know if I can afford, and I faked my way through it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to see a letter of intent, like commercially, and no one wants to talk to me anyway because I signed my
Oh,
emails as Chelsea, and people are like, "That's a female name. We don't really want to talk to you." And that's real, and I didn't realize that until I got into this.
oh
But
my
like,
God.
so I started. This is crafty, but I started signing my emails with my initials only and sending it from a company account, so no one knew.
Yeah.
Like, and I got way more responses as C Low or C
Right.
Voyant or whatever instead of Chelsea. And
Yeah.
so, or Claire. So I'm like, okay, my real name's Chelsea Low and my stage name is
Yep.
Clairvoyant. It doesn't matter because the stage name existed when I had a real people job, so I could hide it. But
That's right.
like, I could hide my Satan magic from, the
Satan
merchandise
magic
company.
is
And
the best magic.
yeah, yeah. So I like put this together and it weirdly starts working to a point where
Yeah.
I need help. And I like just write a Facebook post and I'm like, "Hi, does anyone know anyone cool who wants to work here?" Like just, send them my way. So I get Sierra, who's a badass black metal drummer,
Cool.
and she does CrossFit and can shuck boxes, which I can't because I have like joint issues.
Nice.
I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so I get like someone to help me, and I hire an accountant, and I hire a designer, and I hire a marketing team. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I still like have imposter syndrome every day of my life doing this, but I have faked my way through magic and like performance enough that as soon as I'm like, I need to go get a warehouse, like it becomes like a character. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real estate character today.
Right.
And like it's funny because it works.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so like also real estate's expensive as hell right now. And I'm like, this is hard. This is a hard time to be an entrepreneur looking for real estate.
Right.
And, it's hard. It's stressful. I work a lot of hours, more hours than I should. And it's much harder than doing the same magic show over and over again, but it's also like really cool. And then I can kind of do whatever I want. There's no
Yeah.
one over my shoulder. Like I call in sick to me, I feel like. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm sick." And I'm like, "Don't be a little
Yeah.
bitch coming to work." And then I'm like,
Oh,
you
I,
know,
I found myself out. God
I
damn it.
like, God damn it.
Ah, ah,
Like, you're lying, you're fine, you're not that
yeah.
bad. Stuff
Oh,
needs to get done. Who's gonna do it? Me? And I'm like, "No, I'm so sorry. I'll be there in 10 minutes." Anyway, like I'm yeah. Uh
that's amazing. That's hilarious. Um, you know, Chelsea, this has been a fantastic conversation. Even though you've been the one doing most of the
I'm so
talking.
sorry. I told you. I was like, "Dude, you
Yeah.
gotta reel me in because I'll just keep talking."
I Well, that's the thing. I love, just we talk about the rails. There's no rails. I was like, hey, great, go off into the world and
Okay,
tell us a yarn.
you
It's
encouraged
quite the
all of
yarn.
it.
What's that?
I said you encouraged this, so I
Yeah.
hope your listeners are at least like,
Oh yeah. In
still hanging
fact,
out.
our friend Scott just chimed in. So, turns out you're the third one that he hired.
Yeah, but I'm
Um,
also the last one.
That's
So
true. Yeah, that's right. Because you killed the other ones. Wait,
yeah,
that's
fuck
a
off,
that's a
Scott. What are
different.
you doing here? This is my room. Get out of my room. Ah! Oh, you said the name. That is the name of the first magician he fired because he was bad.
Well, apparently Scott is not holding back.
He does not hold back. He does not hold back. That one.
Yeah,
Okay,
Angela says we need a part two.
so remember when I was like, I had a cool friend who offered me designs at a discount?
Is
That's
that him?
him. That's
Nice.
Angelo.
Hey, Angelo.
We love you, Angelo. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the socks, and I think the other set I have is a bunch of bats too.
So Angelo is the king of designs because I send him a
Oh,
Pinterest board and some colors and some shitty sketches sometimes, and like he makes it magic. So Foot Clothes would not exist without Angelo. So thanks
nice,
for watching, bud. And
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
we
I'm
need.
gonna get you some socks. We need more hot goth buns. I never did anything with the website. I should have. Hotgothbuds.com. I'm just gonna I'm gonna link it to your page, Carly.
There you
Gonna link
go.
it directly to you. So now it's
She
your problem.
she loves
Socks.
goats.
That's
Man,
awesome.
that's awesome. I think somewhere, oh God, somewhere around here. Yeah, the comments are just pouring in at this point now. So you've got a nice following.
I
Montega,
didn't know. Thanks, guys. Whoever you are, I love you for,
yeah,
feeding my little, like, ego here.
yeah. Falcon goth to magic to socks. Love the variety. So yeah.
Andrew Plattner, I knew from Falcon, Colorado.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Wow,
Yeah,
it goes way back.
it
Yeah,
does.
yeah. I think we're definitely going to need a part two because I'm interested to see what other yarns you can spin.
There's so many. Dude, I
Yeah,
like, Daniel, I could talk to you for, like, it just keeps coming. I don't know. It just
good,
happens. So,
good, good, good.
yeah, anytime. Like, follow up with me in a while, and I'll have more stuff that has happened, I promise.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, I think it's really remarkable, to hear, yeah, yeah, everything that led up to the whole COVID stuff, but you were able to swing it around into kind of an entrepreneurial aspect, and make a plus because so much of my friends and your friends have struggled during this time. I know people that friends that I've lost, during this time, not just to COVID, but because of financial stuff,
And there were times, like, I'm not gonna say, like, I
Yeah,
wasn't just like, "I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I know my path." Like, it
right.
was struggle bus hard. Like, there were times where I was like, "Well, I'm gonna put the rest of my money into socks, I guess, and I hope that Dave can cover rent." Like, because
Right.
I can't. And, like, I had people who supported me and believed in me, and I couldn't have done it without them. Like, that is so, like, anytime someone is like, "You're an entrepreneur and you're brilliant," I'm like, "Dude, I didn't even know what I was doing half the time." Like, I called on the troops and the troops answered, like,
Cool.
and like, that's important for me to say. Like, I have my own, like, dumb, stubborn personality of, like, I can be the face of anything, but
Yeah,
there's people behind me, and if there weren't, I would be drowning. So
right.
at any point, and I think that's with anything, anytime you try to pull off something grandiose and stupid,
Right.
if you don't have a good team behind you or, like, people supporting you, if you don't have producers, if you don't have people like, "Oh, we'll fly you to
Yeah,
Detroit to perform in Theater Bazaar," like, all these weird things, like, if you don't have people supporting your weird satanic sock company, it doesn't work.
right.
And I didn't think it would because it's so niche and so bizarre, but I was like, "It's bizarre, but everyone wears socks." So
Yeah,
maybe I can pull it off, and
yeah,
it's working. So if you're watching
good.
this, like, please go buy some socks because 'cause that'll help me, support Sierra and give her a raise, and because she's awesome and deserves it. Like, it's not me. It's not just me. Like, it's so many people, and I
And
feel like that needs to be said.
that's footclothes.com. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah,
it. That is it. That is the dumb name of my stupid company.
yeah.
But we make good things despite the name being weird.
Butt
Butt
clothes.
Butt Clothes is the name of the underwear, like, side project. It's like we were talking about gloves. It's like hand clothes. It's,
And clothes.
there's a whole empire there
Yeah.
waiting.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know when you start to getting to like nose clothes or something like that, or
I don't know what that means, Daniel.
I don't know either. I think that's something you should invent.
Let's talk about it in 2035.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, like, we'll talk about it then. I'll
Yeah.
have lots to say about nose
Time's
clothes.
not linear, it's looped.
It's something like that. I don't know. We're at
Yeah,
that point of the day. We're at the point of the day where I am like, "Thank you for having me, Daniel. I really appreciate it. Here are the places you can find me."
that's right. Where can you find me? On Instagram.
On Instagram is where I hang out
Footclothes.
most of the time. Footclothes.com is where I spend the other 21 hours of my day. Uh,
Excellent.
yeah, and so,
That's what I'm
get some
thinking most
socks,
people.
support some local burlesque and magic because that's where I live is the burlesque community
Nice.
and the aerial weird circus community. Because I'm done working the corporate community. That sucks. I'm not doing it anymore. I've done too many women's conferences, Daniel. I'm not doing them anymore. And yeah, that's where you can find me. Send me a message, say hello,
Yeah.
tell me your favorite weird story and I'll sell you the secrets to magic tricks for, I don't know, $20 or something. That sounds good. And
Sounds like you plan. Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome. Chelsea, again, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us and tell us a little bit of your story and how you got to do what you're doing. And I mean it really is quite a wonderful tale.
Thank you. I'm surprised by this constantly. I'm like, you want to talk to me? Are you sure? Are you sure you want to talk to me? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
Well,
and I think that should be pointed out.
and having talked to you, I just want to talk to you even more.
Okay, sick. I'm like, then I'm gonna end at a cliffhanger because that's how
Ooh,
you get a good sequel. I know this. Like,
yes. It's good marketing. You've listened to your marketing team.
I have. No,
It's
I
also
haven't. I don't listen to them. I like I fight them all the time.
so what's the cliffhanger?
I mean, it's to be continued. The cliffhanger is not even. You don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah.
So
Oh, all right. Excellent. Ooh, excellent. Well, with that, for the follow-up to part two, which will come in 2030, I guess, by the
something
sound of
like
it.
that.
Yeah,
It'll be soonish. I don't
it'll be
know.
soonish. It'll be soonish. No time
Time
and
is
date.
relative.
There's not a script yet. We're still working on that. We're
We
still
did script
developing
out
our
this entire. We scripted out this entire 15 minutes.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
it took a while.
probably so. Probably so. Yeah. So I think we can mesh something together. The life and times of Chelsea. Um, the blood and times of Chelsea.
Have the Chelsea at your local discount shop for $6.66
There
because
you
that
go.
is
Black
about the
light
amount of
Chelsea.
entertainment value that is my life, my entire life. That's what it's worth.
Oh my god, I love it. We're getting punchy. This is hilarious. uh, Chelsea, stick around for a little bit. But again, everybody that tuned into this broadcast, make sure you go to her Instagram page and follow her. And of course, go to footclothes.com and get yourself some socks.
You
And,
should do
and
that.
and make sure look out for buttclothes.com. Yeah, if they're not around already, they're coming soon.
If I drink the rest of the wine, there'll be butt clothes by tonight. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, cool.
That's the
Bye
motto
forever.
this. Uh, stick around for a few minutes while we sign off. So, just a second there. Sorry, I don't want to release you just yet. But
I'm like, no, I'm done. Bye. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, bye. Fuck this. Yeah. Excellent.
That's how I'm gonna end all of my magic shows from here on
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's a good closer. Nice. So thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. And of course, to our sponsors, to Mutiny Information Cafe. If you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated. And of course, our friends at Hellfire Entertainment. Thanks for rebroadcasting us on your social media.
Oh,
To
thanks,
Groom
guys.
TV. And of course, to Alien Donut Films, to Bill and Angela over there. Thanks for putting up with my shenanigans. And my producer, Lily Fisher, Amanda Armstrong, and Stefan Santa Cruz. And to everybody that tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And of course, be good, be kind to each other, help each other out during tough times, and stay creepy. We'll see you guys later. Have a good night.